Okay, Allison, just to jump things off on this ep, I really think we need to watch the first Barbie commercial from 1959 right now. Hit it.
Barbie, you're beautiful. You make me feel my Barbie doll is really real. Barbie's small and so petite. Her clothes and figure look so neat. Her dancing outfit rings the bell. At parties she will cast a spell. Purses, hats, and gloves galore. And all the gadgets gals adore.
Barbie dressed for swim and fun is only $3. Her lovely fashions range from $1 to $5. Look for Barbie wherever dolls are sold.
Someday I'm gonna be exactly like you. Till then I know just what I'll do. Barbie, beautiful Barbie, I'll make believe that I am you.
You can tell it's Mattel.
Yikes.
It's swell.
Oh.
I mean, I just put you through that. How do you feel?
You know, I received a birthday card last year from my coworkers and it said Mattel, it's swell, you know,
Wow.
and I love Barbie. Like, I know that's not a terribly brave thing to say, but I watch that and I want to fork over money for a Barbie.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's a little bit concerning when she's like, till I can be, like, you can be me, I'll be you. Like, that's a little like Justin Timberlake, it's like you're my mirror energy. And I don't know how to sit with that. So we kind of need to get into that. But listeners, you just heard the first ever commercial for Barbie in 1959. We'll post a link to it. It was really a feast for the eyes, the senses. In my bank account, Barbie was $3. Wow.
Barbie was $3, which is not nothing, right? Considering how long ago it was, and can still get a solid Barbie for under a tenner today. So,
oof. And also they rolled out a brunette at first. Barbie wasn't always blonde. They had a blonde and brunette.
They did.
But anyway, welcome everyone to Dolls of Our Lives, the podcast. This is the show where we're reliving the American Girl series book by book, except on Patreon, where we're kind of getting into whatever you ask us to cover or we think fits within the world of the show. I'm not Barbie. I'm going to say I'm bringing more of a Skipper energy to these proceedings. I'm Mary.
I'm also not Barbie or Ruth. My name is Allison.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I never even considered I could bring Ruth energy to this enterprise.
We chose to read Barbie and Ruth, which is kind of a business biography by Robin Gerber. And we're going to talk all about sort of like what we've learned about Barbie's creator. And it's sort of a, you know, like a Mary Shelley, like Frankenstein and his monster situation. But what is your relationship with Barbie? Like, what is your relationship with the monster, so to speak?
With the monster Barbie. My earliest memories of Barbie are kind of monstrous in the sense that the earliest Barbies I had were the Barbies that my mom and her sisters grew up with, which had all been given at-home haircuts. They looked kind of sideways, and my brothers cut off their heads and buried them in the backyard. My mom also wasn't really big on me having Barbies of like all the different kinds of dolls because she thought I would have a bad body image because of Barbie. But then something must have happened, and I suspect my grandmother took me to Ames and bought me the 1996 Olympic Barbie that was a gymnast, and she had that ring you could wear where she would twirl around.
Yes.
Then I had the Rosie O'Donnell Barbie, which made you laugh last time because I think you were just like, I guess you hadn't heard of that. To me, that's like,
No.
That was like a glut on the market. That was everywhere. And my grandmother also got me that. And then I feel like I had some other Barbies, but, you know, I was interested. I don't think I was obsessed with Barbie, but I was, you know, like intrigued. What about you?
I'll get down with a Barbie right now. Like,
Wow.
I bought a Barbie last week because I was like,
Wow, what
kind of caught.
What do you mean
I was like caught up in the thrill of like the Barbie world, and I'm very excited about the Barbie movie. So I still have almost all my Barbies. I would assume I have all of them. Maybe someone like didn't quite make it, but I have my Barbies, my sister's Barbies. I brushed a bunch of their hair in preparation for this episode. I like put them in the convertible. I pulled out the camper.
Wow.
I still have like Barbie domestic elements. My absolute favorite was Kelly. I loved the little like toddler dolls. Kelly was like a little blonde in the image of Michelle Tanner of Full House. I loved my Kelly dolls. I had cribs. Mine were always twins. They traveled in the camper together. I still have a lot of Barbies. I love them.
Okay. I mean, I feel like this is good. We have different perspectives or experiences, which is like, I genuinely enjoyed playing Barbies with other kids, you know, coming up with these imaginary scenarios. And I think I had a bunch of like knockoff Barbie merch from the Christmas tree shop, RIP. They just declared bankruptcy. I'm not prepared to speak about that yet. But, you know, I remember that kind of thing. And just sort of like, it was a really easy and fun thing to bring to someone else's house. And like, this is my Barbie, like I'm rolling up to your place. But I wasn't as in deep on the material culture of it all as you were. And so I think it's a good perspective, like good experiences to bring to the episode.
My Barbie pool was my favorite thing. I do still own it. My Barbie pool was not inflatable. You simply had to fill it with water. And I would spend hours and hours and hours on our deck with the Barbies in and out of the pool. They had a slide. They had a ladder. Safety was like very important. And if you've seen like the recent promotion for the Greta Gerwig film, it is a common misconception that Ken is a trained lifeguard. He is not. You have to get lifeguard Barbie who has the credentials. Ken's job is beach. Ken does not have the credentials to actually do...
Does Ken have a profession? Like, if we're going to bring Ken into this,
it's like... beach.
That's his job?
Yeah, famously in, like, the recent, like, clip that was put out, Ken is not as multi-talented as Barbie canonically. Right. Ken has taken on different roles over time. There's the Ken with the earring. Like, there are different manifestations of Ken. Wow. But he is famously not Barbie's husband. He's never going to be marriage material. And his job is beach.
He's not serious. I'm sorry. Like, a multi-hyphenate like Barbie? You think a Ken is going to, like, be able to handle that? I don't think so.
I did want to ask you, what was your favorite sort of like Barbie career? Like, not, you didn't have to own it, but like of all the manifestations of Barbie, like what was your favorite?
I've always found Barbie in space to be somewhat unhinged in a way that I enjoy, but I also think Barbie for president. And I said the 1996 Olympic Barbie, so that is a high place in my heart. What about you?
My top tier Barbie was the 1990 Happy Birthday Barbie. I still have her in her outfit. Her hair looks beautiful. She looks beautiful.
Can I see? Like, do you have the Barbies with you? Like, where are these Barbies?
The Barbie is not in the room with us right now, but I do have a photo readily available. Okay. So I love that Barbie. I think that she was just like a beautiful creation. I also really loved, I had the Belle Barbie, Belle as in from Beauty and the Beast. But my favorite professional Barbie was always the teacher. She had a really, really kooky outfit that was based on Miss Frizzle, where she had like math equations on her skirt. And she had a real talking, like flippable chalkboard. And so I always loved that Barbie because that chalkboard could be used for a lot of functions. Like when Barbie went camping, it could also be a billboard. So
you really like the teacher aesthetic because you also really loved Molly's school set, from what I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this is the outfit. This is gonna be kind of hard to see, but it's a pink outfit. See, yeah. It's gauzy. The 1990 Happy Birthday Barbie. She is beautiful. I polled my mother and my sister, who are big Barbie fans. Astronaut Barbie ranked very high. My mother had like OG Barbies. Like my mother had like original Barbies. And her brothers, unfortunately, did give them all haircuts. And she was like, I remember the 5 of them being chopped like it was yesterday.
Damn.
Like, they were given a place of importance in the family shed in the backyard. And my mother, like, hid them there so they could have privacy and, like, their own version of a domestic dream house.
Love that.
And unfortunately, they were given a group haircut from which my mother has never recovered.
I feel that. I mean, I think what's interesting is, like, it's really cool that you have that generational, like, common interest with your mom and your sister. My mom, like, if we're talking about Mattel, which in many ways we can debate whether this book is a history of Barbie or Mattel, but she was always more into, like, Hot Wheels. And I know that she was really excited one year when Santa brought her, like, the Hot Wheels, like, you know, play set. And I kind of, like, that spoke to me. I was also kind of a tomboy. So I was, you know, more into like things that were more active, except for Polly Pockets, another Mattel product. But I still have my Polly Pockets. I loved those. So I feel like I have more memories of actively playing with that. Whereas Barbie to me was so like curated and collectible that I kind of just felt like I couldn't play with her. And I think with my American Girl dolls, kind of a similar thing of like, I don't want to break this, that kind of energy.
Got it. No, my Barbies are well loved. They're also cared for. Like, my Barbies, like, they could get in their convertible right now and have an adventure. Like, my Barbies were super special to me, but I also took good care of them because I wanted them to last. And it's been sort of enlightening to me being an adult and thinking, like, I can buy a Barbie right now for $10.
Wow. I mean,
and, like,
yeah. And what Barbie did you buy last week?
So I felt compelled to own, I've bought these for friends and I bought one for my niece. I wanted to own the Park Ranger Barbie because she has the hat and she has the whole aesthetic. And it was something just kind of missing from my workplace. So there is a Barbie now. Steps High lives at my workplace because like there's like some domestic squabbles I can't get into with Steps High and like other people who live here.
Got it.
But Steps High has like gotten a promotion. She was Employee of the Month in May.
Wow.
So Steps High like needed a new companion. So I got a Park Ranger Barbie. Notably, this Park Ranger wears shorts, and that's like pretty much a no-no in my workplace. Like we don't wear the shorts like for the line of work that we do. So she is going to need to wear pants, but like I haven't broached that with her yet.
Mm-hmm. Well, she's new at the job, so you don't want to overwhelm her too much, probably, right?
Yeah, it's awkward. And like she's wearing the hat inside, which is like not really what it's for, but it's affixed to her head. So
she will perhaps not be Employee of the Month this month.
No, I think like Steps High set a pretty like, you know, like a pretty high mark for her to get up to. But like reading Barbie and Ruth, this was not an intended purpose of this book, but it made me feel like I need a Barbie right now.
I feel that. I mean, it seems like the marketing of the Barbie movie has really reached you. Like, what do you make of the rollout? Like, before we get into this book, like, Barbie is back in the ether because of this movie that's coming out, which we should say at the time of this recording is not out, or we would have seen it and talked about it. But, you know, what do you make of, like, the media rollout, the marketing of this movie? Like, how are you feeling before having seen it?
I mean, to me, it's exciting. Like, I think Barbie is a character that's very meaningful to me. I think it's also sparked interesting conversation about, you know, how people play and, like, what Barbie was to them. And, like, the sort of latest, like, Twitter discourse, which I know is, like, its own world that sometimes we don't want to enter, was sort of the controversy over, like, did Barbie make you feel bad about yourself, right? Like, was Barbie a tool that made you feel as though you weren't enough? Or, and I'll talk about kind of backlash against this tweet, was Barbie something you felt you controlled? And this started with Kathy Park Hong tweeting, "Weird how everyone forgot how Barbie made girls feel bad for not being white, blonde with 18-inch waists, all because Greta Gerwig directed this film. Anyway, the capitalist infantilization of America here is off the charts." Okay.
I mean, what do you make of that? I didn't see that tweet, so this is like news to me. You telling me about it today.
So the tweet, like quote tweet that went viral in response to that was someone saying like tongue in cheek, like Barbie taught me how I could like dominate other women, or like showed me that I could have control over other people's lives. Like I made Barbie what she was. I do remember, I think I do remember there being controversy. Like Mattel rather has always made Barbies that come in a variety of forms, but has not, in terms of like race or ethnicity, but has not always been very inclusive in terms of size or ability and many other categories. I mean, for me, Barbie was like very special. For whatever reason, my grandfather loved that I played with Barbies, and I would bring Barbies when we would go to his appointments, and I just always had Barbies around. To me, they were like great little companions. I had my sisters. I loved them. I had like very imaginative worlds. What this book kind of unlocked for me that I had never really connected is that Barbie is an adult and all of the rest of my dolls were babies or children. And the notion behind Barbie from the beginning, the genesis, was that girls and children who play with dolls look up to adults. and want to be adult to some degree. And that had never been unlocked for me. I loved Barbie because she was a spectacular professional and a mom and all these other things. But I never looked at Barbie and thought, this is what I'm supposed to look like. But I know that that is a criticism of the doll.
Yeah, I mean, because my mom called attention to it, I think I was more aware of Barbie's physicality because my mom only restricted me from 2 things growing up. One was Grease, one was Barbies. And I mean, and again, she didn't really keep me from either of those things, but I think it just made me more aware of it. And frankly, aware of like when my mom and other women in my family would say negative things about their own Barbies or bodies, excuse me. Oh my God. Bodies, not Barbies. But it made me more aware of like women, like that your body was something that you could feel bad about. Like that my mom didn't want me to have a Barbie because she thought it would make me feel bad about my body or have like send myself negative messages. It was like, oh, like you could send yourself negative messages about your body. Like to me, it just started like an awareness of that. And I think it sort of gets at the bigger frame of Barbie, which is like, is Barbie a fun playmate who doesn't pressure you to be anything other than who you are? And she's like encouraging you and like wants to be your ride along playmate? Or is she presenting like this, you know, unattainable model of like a person who gets to be an astronaut at a time when women can't have credit cards, which is like a point that Greta Gerwig is trotting out in every interview she's doing about the movie, which is true. Like Barbie was a astronaut in 1965 or something before anyone went on the moon. And, you know, women couldn't have credit cards in their own name at that period. So it's like, was she like moving the needle forward for women? Was she presenting an unattainable vision of womanhood? Like, I don't really know. It wasn't that deep for me as a child.
Barbie, I mean, gave me hours of entertainment that were not digital.
Right.
Right. And like today, literally, I was like at the YMCA like an hour before we did this recording, and the table next to me, it had been like an adult with like a number of children. And the thing that they had left behind while they were in the pool was like I almost took a photo, but I didn't want to invade the Barbie's privacy. Like a massive pile of naked Barbies, like ready to go swimming. Like they had taken the clothing off the Barbies, and it was like, those Barbies are going in that YMCA pool at some point today, whether they wanted to or not. But to me, that was kind of interesting because I can't think of another thing that I really loved that I can still go out on a regular basis and see kids playing with. I know there are other things, but in my particular case, it's like that was a funny point of connection. My Barbies were always naked all summer because they were swimming.
Wow.
I'm not going to ruin their professional outfit.
Sure.
Swimming.
Yeah.
And then they put a towel on and they go back, you know, to Ken or whoever, but like, you know.
I mean, yeah, of course. Like, was Barbie part of that dream in the 2000s of, like, the fake notion of, like, you can just transition from day to night? Like, you put on a blazer, you go to the club right from your job. Like, I don't know who was doing that, but those are the kind of transitions I'm imagining. But now it's, like, Barbie to the pool, then back to being president.
Barbie could do anything. I mean, Barbie was president. She was camping. She was raising, in my case, twins. Always twins. Like,
she had a lot going
that's
on.
Just
she had a lot on her plate, a lot of caretaking that she was invested with. I think it's interesting just to, like, get into this whole thing. Like, so Barbie's coming back. Like, Greta Gerwig, I feel like, has a trajectory of, like, of investigating, like, girlhood, womanhood with, like, Lady Bird and Little Women, which we've covered. And it'll be interesting to see, like, how she uses Barbie to talk about other things. Like, what is intrinsic to Barbie? And then what is kind of the conversation that she wants to have using Barbie as, like, the language for that, or, like, the cultural touchstone for that conversation.
Interestingly, Ruth Gerber, who wrote the book that we chose to read about Barbie, she did not want to write a cultural history of Barbie, right?
She
like,
did not.
This is not a cultural comment on, like, the various manifestations. And if you are very curious about kind of, like, all the different worlds that Barbie has lived in, you're not going to get that from this book. What Robin Gerber is interested in is, oh, see, that's so interesting. This publisher's review called her Ruth Gerber. No, Ruth is the creator of Barbie. Robin Gerber is the author of this book. She basically said, like, I'm going to put my pen down in DC and like not write about Eleanor Roosevelt and write about the creator of the Barbie doll. I'm going to read just this part of the summary. This is the entwined tale of two exceptional women. One was a voluptuous 11-inch tall beauty who debuted at the 1959 Toy Fair and quickly became the treasure 9 out of 10 American girls in their counterparts in 150 countries. She went on to compete as an Olympic athlete, serve as an Air Force pilot, work as a boutique owner, run as a presidential candidate, and ignite a cultural firestorm. The other was Ruth Handler, the 10th child of Polish Jewish immigrants. A brilliant, creative, ruthless, and passionately competitive visionary, she was a mother and wife who wanted it all. A masterful entrepreneur who, together with her curvaceous plastic creation, changed American business and culture forever. This suggests that this is a dual biography of Barbie and her creator, which it is not.
No. I think this book should have been called Ruthless. Just going to put that out there. I think that would have been a better title, no shade to the creator of Barbie, Ruth. But I want to kind of first say, like, this author, Robin Gerber, has written many other books on that sort of like use a exceptional woman to explore like leadership qualities. And her background is that she's an attorney. And as of this publication, at least, I don't know what she's doing these days, she was a senior fellow in executive education at the Robert H. Smith School of Business, University of Maryland, College Park. But she'd previously written a book called Leadership, the Eleanor Roosevelt Way, Timeless Strategies for the First Lady of Courage, Katharine Graham, The Leadership Journey of an American Icon. And amazingly, her books have been blurbed by people ranging from Warren Buffett to Katie Kelly, who has written many like famously, I don't know how to describe her biographies, but they're not often warm and fuzzy or respectful of their subjects. I'm saying that having read many of them. So she's getting like Warren Buffett to blurb her books. Like these books, I'm imagining are really like being taught at like business schools. She's not coming at us as like, guys, I'm a cultural historian and I want to imagine like what Barbie has meant for all of us. Like that's not what her project is.
No, and this author makes an interesting choice, which is to pull us right into controversy,
oh my God.
Right, with Ruth, and to kind of take us to a moment where her career is in crisis. And we learn that she is being brought into court under a number of charges that we'll essentially call mismanagement, right? Like, yes. I'm going to take a kind of Barbie-esque approach to money and be like, money is real, but it is also fake, right? Like, there is real money
mm-hmm.
in the Barbie universe, but, like, I also had the Barbie supermarket. I could get down with that for hours.
God.
And, like, at the end of the day, like, the conveyor belt is real. The currency is not.
Correct.
Part of the trajectory of this book is, like, a really interesting and compelling backstory about Ruth and like how she came to be a person who like married a guy that was brilliant with plastics, which I never would have even like thought of, right? Like the particular cultural moment where Barbie could get created. And yet a lot of the book then takes us into like her downfall, which I had never heard of. I didn't know that there was ever a legal situation that led to like the complete disgrace of the creator of Barbie. In my mind, a singular woman created her. Wrong, right? Her husband, Elliot, was like a big part of the creative process. And it was an instant hit and it's been a success. And these people are extremely wealthy. Was wrong about all of those things. And this book like definitely gives you that business backstory.
Yes, it does. And I think it's as much like I'm so overwhelmed by this woman took so much on in this book, like writing about truly the founding of Mattel and like her, like Ruth's own life, how she produces Mattel and then her downfall. It's an interesting kind of parody with the Sydney biography we read a while ago on All the Kind Family, where that was fascinating because the product, if you want to call it that she produces, these books, are so heavily drawn on her life. But the biography really teases out how she curates that, what goes into the books, what she keeps out, how her life diverges from what you might expect based on reading the books. This is basically like one of the biggest revelations is like it wasn't personal for Ruth. Like Barbie was not personal for Ruth. Both Barbie the child, inspiring the name, we'll get into that, and then also Barbie, this brand within this larger corporation, and that like the pursuit of being an entrepreneur is the personal part for her. That's the thing that's driving her. But the introduction is truly stunning, and I just want to read some sentences from it because this sent me, like, I was laughing. I was like, I'm sitting up in my seat reading this because I couldn't, like, follow it. This is, I want to say, listeners, this introduction is only 2.5 pages. So it's very brief. But the ground that this woman covers, it's like, okay, Ruth was not the first celebrity defendant to carry a worried frown into this Los Angeles courthouse. Clark Gable and Charlie Chaplin had both argued paternity cases there in the 1940s. Bette Davis had forced Warner Brothers to defend itself in a breach of contract suit in the second-floor courtrooms. Only a few years earlier, the federal government had prosecuted Daniel Ellsberg, a military analyst for the Rand Corporation, for leaking the Pentagon Papers. But there had never been a felon like Ruth. And you're like, wait, what? Clark Gable, Charlie Chaplin, Bette Davis, Daniel Ellsberg, Ruth? We get a from nowhere reference to the fact that her attorney was wearing a tie pin from PT 109 given to him personally by JFK. Like, there's details that stay with you in this book. I learned a lot about how this business started. I don't even know where to begin with this book. Like, there's so much ground covered, so many things to say.
We learn that Ruth is sitting there, quote, a wife and grandmother beset by illness, beaten down by years of litigation, and terrified she would be incarcerated. How had it come to this moment? Ruth and Elliot, her husband, had celebrated their 40th wedding anniversary that summer. How had she gone from that time of hope and promise so many years before to this moment of fear and despair? This is a book about, like, a person tackling and overcoming challenge after challenge after challenge. But to me, it's also a parable about a person who is never happy with the outcome of conquering any of those challenges. Like, if I created Barbie in 1959 and I got to live until 2002, which is Ruth's case, I would have had someone sit down and say, this is how much money you need to have a pool, take good care of your cat, and, like, live the way you want to live. Like, this is the number.
Yes.
This is what you need to do. And I would say, thank you for that number. And I would put other people, like, who I trusted in charge of, like, ensuring that that occurred. And I would smile and I would pose and I would endlessly create versions of new Barbies. For Ruth, it was never about that. It was about the win more than the toy. And it's fascinating to see, like, how many other successes she and her husband Elliot had. And to me, the extent to which it was never enough. Like, none of this was ever enough for her. And I think that's part of what actually leads to the downfall, as well as some, like, troubling accounting and business practices. But she's really in that courtroom because almost 20 years after creating Barbie, there was no satisfaction for her, almost at all, in having created one of the most successful toys of all time.
Yeah, I mean, as you're saying, I think the modus operandi of her professional life, and you might say personal life, of which there didn't seem to be a whole hell of a lot of a personal life, she was more invested in the process, not any of these products. Like, none of these products were the thing that she was like, I can't wait to get up in the morning and, like, work on Barbie and, like, tell her story and I have a vision. There was no, like, artistic, creative motivation there. It was really like Barbie was a means to an end, which was, it started out that she wanted to survive. And we can get into her early life, which is, you know, she's the child of Jewish immigrants. And she's not raised by her parents. We learned that early in the book. She's raised by an older sister
who runs a business, and Ruth is brought into that business, and she basically works like a counter at a drugstore, and she absolutely loves it. She, like, loves going to school. She loves this experience. There's also, like, an interesting number of references to the fact that, like, she and her husband Elliot have like this dynamic instant sexual connection, and it's like,
Allison.
But they waited until marriage.
No, they didn't wait till marriage, Allison. We were forced to learn that fact.
They did.
They waited for 3 years, and then they decided to, like, take it all away, air quotes. Got married after 5.
This fact that, like, she feels this, like, very intense connection with him, and yet the number of times in interviews and experts in this book where she's like, men don't really matter. Like,
but that's at the end of her life.
But, like, the Ken doll, I think, like, tells us much more than we could ever possibly imagine. for her, like, the
Wow.
real partnership with Elliot is that he encourages her to work and sees her as a valuable business partner.
Mhm.
Like, you learn early on that he feels as though they're both better at business working together. When she makes more money than him doing typing work in LA, he's like, I love it.
Yeah.
I live for it.
I mean, that is the interesting contradiction that you learn from this book, which is that the person who made Barbie an icon onto which so much has been mapped about, like female disempowerment, like the limitations or the traditional roles women are supposed to play that Barbie like encourages. The person who makes that literally could not have cared less about playing any traditional role. Like, she avowedly was like, when she marries Elliot, finally, they have 2 children, a boy and a girl. She's like, I don't want to be home. This is a nightmare. Get me out of here. Like, she found no pleasure in being a stay-at-home parent or, keeping the home as women were supposed to in the 50s or late 40s. And instead, she's like literally encouraging Elliot to get in further his industrial design career. He gets drafted in 1945. This woman is straight up like writing letters to the U.S. Army being like, he is an essential worker in my corporation, like pretending not to be his wife and like that their company is not just the 2 of them. And he got into like plexiglass early, basically. It's like, not to sound like a graduate and be like plastics, but like he got into plexiglass. He was making stuff. She was like, I'm the sales girl. I will sell whatever you make. And he was like, great, I want no part of that. And that's how it all began for them, which is sort of surreal.
You also learn that her father with whom she did not actually grow up with, like, she knew her father, but they were not close. She didn't live in the same household. She lived with her sister and brother-in-law as her parents, or like her guardian figures. You learn that he like made a ton of money through a trucking business, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like transportation in Denver, Colorado. And there's this interesting through line where it's like, that's not his passion. His actual passion is like gambling and playing cards. But he has this like drive and this motivation to be very successful that she carries with her. And it does kind of make you wonder, like, if she had fallen in love with a different guy who was in on the ground floor, like, I could see her with, like, Oppenheimer, right? Like, It kind of didn't matter what it was. She's like, I'm going to make a big impact.
Yes.
I don't really care in what. Like, this guy happens to be super knowledgeable about plexiglass.
Well, and it's like her parents, I think, felt like her surrogate parents, her sister and her husband were like, I think feeling like, well, here's this girl who can enjoy like the middle class kind of stuff that we didn't get to have. And they think they wanted her to have like a traditional marriage or like as a sign of their, rise in the world as immigrants. And then she basically at the same time is like, yeah, so I'm going to law school. And then she doesn't end up doing that. But it's like she was very motivated, I think, from the jump. So like they do this business, and initially Mattel is like the like combination of Elliot's name and some other guy's name who he's like doing this plexiglass business with. But quickly then she's sidelined because she's pregnant twice. But when she comes back, it's like very clear, like she's the reason, according to her. And the author always makes sure like one of her leadership qualities is she's not shy about like pumping herself up or taking credit for things. And she's like, I'm a marketing genius, point 1. I'm not afraid to get out there and sell stuff. And she has really good instincts about like who to reach out to grow the business or to like be a market for the stuff that Elliot's designing, which goes on to become like plexiglass dollhouse furniture.
And part of what you're bringing up is a hugely important contradiction that I don't think Robin Gerber tries to solve or wants to solve, which is that Ruth consistently wants 2 things to be true. She wants people, actually probably 3 things. She wants people to believe that she is like a full-time undistracted parent, as well as a full-time entrepreneur and like runner of this business. And she also, when convenient, wants people to believe that she knows nothing about the fraud at her own company.
Yep. Yeah.
And so her children, Barbara and Ken, like they have issue with the first 2.
Can we pause for a second? Because you just noted that her daughter's name is Barbara, who
Correct.
goes by Bobby, but they decide to name the doll Barbie in her honor.
Correct.
Then a couple years after, we get Ken named after her son. So she has invented a romantic couple based on her own children.
It's giving Anne Rinaldi.
It's giving Flowers in the Attic. It's giving I'm scared. It's giving why didn't the author pick up on this or comment on it? Like, she just blows right through it and is like, yeah, so anyway, like, of course, the doll's named Barbie, and then, like, we get Ken. Like, girls were writing in asking for Barbie to have a boyfriend, so, of course, we get Ken.
I think on some level, though, it shows the extent to which she's completely committed to the ideas of her business, but not certain particulars, right? Like, one of her early interventions is this idea that Barbie is an adult. And so Barbie will be fully developed, and Barbie will have eventually companions and multiple outfits. But you're also given the sense that, like, she's not creative in certain ways. And she's like, well, I have a daughter, and Barbara and certain other things were trademarked, and so Barbie it is, right? That this kind of seemingly, like, inconsequential thing to her ends up being hugely important to other people. You get the sense that she's, like, detail-oriented when she wants to be, but actually, like, sort of, like, weirdly hands-off about other stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point, especially when we think about where she gets the idea for Barbie in the first place, which is they go on a European tour as a family, and they're in Switzerland, and she sees the Bill Lilly doll, which, if you look this up, it was invented in 1955, so 4 years before Barbie. It looks exactly like a Barbie doll. Like, it's very close. And these were, like, basically sex dolls, or, like, dolls. That's how Robin describes it. But they were dolls that were sold exclusively to men at places like gas stations. And she imagines they would be hung from, like, the rear view window on, like, keychain or something. I don't know. But, like, they look just like Barbie dolls. And she looks at them and is like, but what if they were for children and you could, like, sell optional clothes so they could change their outfits? And it doesn't occur to her. She's a very details-oriented person, as you're saying. And she has this vision. But it never occurs to her, like, maybe there might be some concern about pitching Barbie as an adult who's based on what is described as, like, a sex doll in Europe with very little alteration. Like, is there any, like, are we going to be wading into anything here in terms of, like, signaling body image issues or, like, growing up too soon? Literally never comes up for Ruth.
Or for Robin. Like, I think Robin is an interesting person to write this biography because she doesn't get bogged down in that. The line in this book that, like, really took me aback, little girls just want to be bigger girls. You know, for me, like, Barbie was a bridge between me and my sister. We're 10 years apart because I played with my sister's Barbies, and my sister would play Barbie with me. There were other things she didn't want to play anymore. It had never connected and clicked for me that part of what I loved about Barbie was that she was an adult. She had an adult life. And again, it's kind of like a joke in the trailers for, like, the Barbie movie. But it's like, Barbie, what are you going to do later? And she's like, well, I'm going to have a blowout party and I'm going to have all my friends over. And, like, Barbie also has a career and a car. I loved Molly. Molly is forced to eat turnips.
Never
right?
forget.
Like, Molly has the same problems as me in a different historical moment. Barbie has a life that is adult and aspirational. The amount of times that they talk about Barbie having, like, beautiful breasts and, like, a voluptuous figure in this book, like, no one said, like, I don't know if we need to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
no one questioned that. But, like, Barbie being beautiful is part of her packaging, literally. Like, that she is a beautiful character.
And it's interesting that, like, her business instincts are, again, and Robin introduces Ernest Dichter about a third of the way through this book, or more than that. And he's someone who's a corporate consultant who literally was a psychiatrist who practiced literally on the opposite side of the street from Sigmund Freud. And so when he comes to the States, he becomes somewhat infamous because he does consulting for corporations on their product rollout. And he does, like, a study of Ivory soap, like how people think about soap and, like, the narratives you should project on products to make them sell. And surprise, as, like, a Freudian, a lot of his narratives are sexual and about desire. Like, he's huge in the car industry and, like, making car sales, like, sexy. So he does, like, his own testing of girls and mothers for the Barbie design and production phase in 1959. And he reports back, mothers, it turned out, hated the doll, but not their daughters. This is Robin. He interviewed girls about what they wanted in a doll. It turns out what they wanted was someone sexy looking, someone that they wanted to grow up to be like. Long legs, big breasts, glamorous. He encouraged Ruth to market her with a simple idea. Girls needed a way to convince their mothers that Barbie and her many outfits would teach them to be ladies, and well-groomed ladies at that. Barbie would be an educational tool for mothers. The sexual overtones of the doll would be downplayed by emphasizing the ways her outfits could help girls learn to accessorize. But then he goes on to say, like, you should make her boobs bigger. Like, it's like, and Robin doesn't say anything in that section that's like, yeah, so obviously, like, having a Freudian who's, like, prone to see sexual imagery everywhere might not have been super helpful, or, like, maybe Ruth should have been kind of pushing back, or even checking herself as, like, a woman in business who's dealing with a lot of sexism, like, maybe to make sure that's not working its way into the R&D for Barbie.
I also loved how much you learned in this book about getting the plastics just right.
Oh my God.
Because, like, we've all left a Barbie in the sun. Like, Lorraine Hansberry, like, bravely said, like, a raisin in the sun, like,
Barbie in the sun.
What goes on. Barbie in the sun, like, she will implode. Like, she will melt at some point, like a bad crayon. We learned that, like, the lights were so bright in the filming of that commercial. Dolls were frozen overnight so they wouldn't melt under the lights. I wrote that down,
too. I was amazed by that.
Heron fashion stylists stood at the ready to do touch-ups as the filming went on. And this line, which we signaled earlier, someday I'm going to be just like you. Till then I know just what I'll do. Barbie, beautiful Barbie, I'll make believe that I am you. And to your point, like, there's so many different ways that you could have written this book, and I'm not suggesting that this book be different. It is, in a way, like, so much more fascinating to me that, like, these particular details were not actually, like, really part of a female creator's plan. It was like, what will sell? Okay, I'll pull from this psychologist, I'll pull from this sex doll creator, I'll pull from, like, what the Japanese plastics industry is teaching us. So much of this book was not about Barbie, but it helps you understand that Barbie is really an amalgam of marketing ideas as opposed to, like, a tool. You know, we, like, knowing what we know about Pleasant Rowland, like, Pleasant was so intentional about creating a world and a series of dolls. Ruth was kind of like, what can I sell? Also, like, we have the fart gun and the whole ukulele chapter. It's like, she's learned from selling other plastics, toys, and dollhouse furniture, and it's like, so of course I'll make a voluptuous adult doll for little girls to play with. Like, it's so just not the trajectory that I'd imagined for Barbie in my mind.
Yeah, and I think actually putting us in the trajectory of, like, how Mattel builds as a toy company is really helpful in actually understanding Barbie and what happens there, and Ruth's feeling of responsibility to it, or, like, basically no responsibility, because they do, like, the ukulele toy. They do a toy piano that doesn't really work out, teachers or something, because you need to figure out if your toy is going to be broken in delivery and, like, plan for that. Then she does the burp gun, which is a realistic looking machine gun, and, like, follows
I said fart gun, I think. I'm sorry.
Well, it's, you know, close enough. I mean, like, some kind of noise gun. And there's, like, some feedback in that moment, which was surprising for me to read, where people are like, don't you have a sense of responsibility of, like, you're going to make kids violent if you're handing them really realistic toy guns. So realistic that Robin describes she goes to Westinghouse to get permission to use their name on some Westinghouse revolvers for kids. And she points one of the toy guns. I'm not
laughing. It's just like,
it's insane.
It's so absurd.
Ruth goes into the boardroom at Westinghouse and is like, bang, bang, and, like, points the toy Westinghouse at the CEO of Westinghouse. And it looks so realistic. He hits the deck because he's scared that she's, like, going to shoot him at this board meeting. And so people at one point say to her, like, don't you feel responsible? And she says, quote, people make wars, we don't. And I feel like that tells you everything you need to know about how she probably approached her own responsibility to Barbie and a whole host of other things. Like, oh, well, if people put expectations on women, society's doing that, we're not. And seeing herself as, like, not contributing to that in any way.
And yet, something where she deserves credit, ? She is a very early proponent of advertising to children. Mm-hmm. So I think what does add an important layer to what you're saying, it's not just that she's creating, like, guns or pianos, ukuleles, dolls, dollhouse furniture. she's teaming up with Walt Disney Company to target advertisements to children. And you think, like, the world that we live in now, that feels so obvious, and yet that being such an important shift, right? And this is like a boom moment in child psychology, like a newer, sharper understanding that what children play with shapes them for life. She's on the ground level and she's like, how do I sell more plastic?
Yeah. I mean, basically her biggest talent is, yes, she has good instincts in what things will sell, but really it's marketing and like knowing, you know, if you send people out to the stores to do some, you know, sales counts in the aisles, like you'll get more up-to-date sale information than if you wait for it to go through the traditional channels. And like if you advertise directly to kids, they'll pressure their parents to buy them stuff. And like she has all these amazing instincts that feel so natural now, but apparently were not in 1959. So it's like, okay, I'm not in any way discounting what difficulty this woman went through to get to where she was, or the like seismic scale popularity of Barbie or like her role in that. I think it's just really interesting too that like Robin sort of like in a throwaway comment notes, and at no point did Robin like try to help, or did Ruth try to help other women at Mattel in their careers. Like,
correct.
She felt no responsibility to them. She was like, I basically feel like a man in business.
There's a section in the 60s where it says, if applicants did not have what Ruth called the entrepreneurial personality, she classified them as NMM, or not Mattel material. Those few who made it through the gauntlet and if questions of competition were hired, Ruth ended up with a brilliant bunch of combatants. And you can imagine, right, like there are multiple points in this book where people flag in various ways that Ruth and Elliot did not always keep to their word, right? That they were deceptive about certain things. And I don't feel as though I've done a terribly good job of explaining it because I'm not sure I understand it in the book. The thing that ends up getting her like sentenced to a very significant period of time of community service and huge financial penalties is wrongdoing within the company. And you're supposed to believe that like Ruth maybe wasn't fully aware of everything or was tricked, and yet that she was the mastermind of it all. And I don't know where I land because I didn't understand how you were supposed to perceive that whole situation.
I had to look that phrase up because it comes back again and again. So here's what my understanding of what happened was, and you can tell me if this is wrong. The business is growing faster than they can handle it. They end up hiring a lot of VPs. They end up acquiring a lot of other toy companies to take advantage of their inventions or their fulfillment or whatever. And that ends up being like bad bets. Most of the companies they buy, except for Ringling Brothers Circus, not profitable. Then she hires this guy to kind of be like the CFO or something. And he sort of starts committing fraud by encouraging something called bill and hold, which according to the internet is a transaction in which the seller does not ship goods to the buyer, but still records the related revenue. So if this is not done specific to whatever the acceptable criteria are, it is fraud. And it ends up getting reported on reports involving something with Ringling Brothers. And that's the thing that sinks her, because it would appear that she is reviewing all the sales sheets, and we're told she has like a minute attention to detail on these sheets. She can spot the errors. And yet we're also supposed to believe she had no idea that the bill and hold strategy was happening, that it was fraud. And she puts it all on this guy who also tried to take over the company through like a merger that didn't go down. But like there's all of this like very convoluted stuff going on. But the I think essential piece of it is the book is trying to have us admire her for her attention to detail, her control of the business, even as it scales to this huge degree. And she had no idea that they were defrauding stockholders at this point. They were a public company, of their degree of sales using this tactic.
They've also been running a business together for 3 decades at this point.
Right. Although like the degree to which Elliot is running anything is questionable. And I do respect that there's a part in this book where Ruth and Elliot, they have to effectively get rid of a ton of their Mattel stock, right? Like millions and millions of dollars. And they have to make amends, and they are forced to really kind of like
own that they were responsible, right? Whether they were fully culpable, that it is their responsibility to run their company correctly. I think what also gets really complicated is you get a sense that Ruth tries to really have this second act with this creation of women's undergarments that are made for people who've had a mastectomy, right? Like there's like two things that come together in this plot. And there's a moment where the judge shames her in a very particular way and tells her that she's not allowed to, obviously they've been disgraced under the Mattel name, and that she is not really allowed to work on enriching herself or others through the continuation of the work with the mastectomy undergarments, but that she can do it only if it benefits indigent people who can't buy their own. And there are a lot of points in this book where you feel like Ruth maybe wasn't always fully forthcoming about the full extent of sexism that was directed toward her. That was like a really bizarre chapter in this story of kind of like them going out of the way to shame her and to say, like, we know you've tried to create yourself as this new type of business person. You're not going to be allowed to do that, and you can only do that if it's charitable. I feel like the author had mixed feelings about her final decade or so of life, and I walked away from the book like really not knowing what to make of it myself.
Yeah, okay. I have a lot to say on this, and I don't really know where I land, but I also was not clear on where the author landed. We talked about this before, but there's a section in the back of the book where she lists her sources, and the author kind of like makes a little in the acknowledgments, like her statement on the people where she did her research, who helped her, whatever. There is nothing to her credit. This is what the author writes about Ruth. There is nothing to her credit in being among the scoundrels of American business, but there is much to admire about her redemption. Without it, I would not have chosen to write her story. And this is in a section where she's basically like, I noticed that this woman was like built Mattel. No one had ever written a biography of her. I stepped into it. However, I was only willing to do it because she has a redemption arc to the later half of her story. And I find that really fascinating because no one writing a biography of Cornelius Vanderbilt ever says, I only wrote this biography of him because he ends up being likable, because he wasn't. Like, that's just not
right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't enter into the equation about whether their life is significant and worthy of consideration or telling their story. So it's sort of weird that like the author falls prey to the trope she's accusing the judge of, which is like actually being kind of sexist in accounting for the things that make her life matter. Whereas I read the scene with the judge being like, she made another fortune after she's pushed out of Mattel. They have to forward a bunch of their stock, as you're saying, to pay back shareholders. They keep a bunch of their stock and they just can't work there anymore or be on the board. And she's devastated because she misses the game. It's not about the money. And she immediately starts Nearly Me after her own bout with breast cancer to make prosthetics for women who have had mastectomies. And she works with like Betty Ford, like big names, and then is also helping out people who can't afford her products. But she makes a fortune doing that. So the judge, I think, was basically saying, you cannot continue to work on your new business and pretend that that's you fulfilling your community service. Like, I think the guy who defrauded, who she blamed everything on, they were sentenced together. He got a similar sentence. And to me, like, I think Martha Stewart was treated with sexism because men did what she did and did not get prison sentences. Ruth, I'm like, I kind of feel like Ruth knew, and she at least, at the very least, knew what was going on and was okay with it, even if it wasn't her idea. We'll never know. Like, we have no proof, like, one way or the other. But I find it weird that, like, the author puts it on the judge that she had to take the fall for this, but then also kind of treats Ruth with respect, like also with some kind of gendered strangeness about like feeling like she had to explain why her life was worth writing about.
I also don't have a sense that for Ruth, the creation of Barbie per se was the pinnacle of her life.
No, I think Mattel helped her retcon that later because she writes in the book, or Robin writes, that 25 years after she's pushed out of Mattel It's under new management, including a CEO who's a woman who loves Barbie and really respects Ruth, and brings her back in as like a fun spokesperson during the commemoration of like Barbie's 25th birthday or like these different birthdays. And Ruth does like signings and stuff. And it's sort of like kind of redeems Ruth with the brand. So I feel like they kind of rewrote Ruth's narrative to be like, oh no, like she's a really important person to Barbie, which she is. But like, is that what Ruth would say about herself?
Yeah, I don't think Barbie is that important to Ruth.
No,
I'm just saying I think that distinction is like very interesting.
Yeah, because then the book goes on after she invents Barbie to be like the invention of Hot Wheels, the invention of G.I. Joe, like the invention of all this other stuff that's really important for Mattel. And I think all of those things were just as important to Ruth because they helped her in her pursuit of like success in the toy industry. And she really wanted to be known as a successful businesswoman. And like you get these accounts of her being invited onto these boards with other leaders in business. And like she should have been like, she's invited to be the vice president, knowing that that person becomes president the following year. And they announce 2 vice presidents the year she joins, who's a man. The other one is a man, so that he can be president and she will be barred from that. So it's like she's aware of like all of these barriers to her own success, but it's not like she's like, and that's why I made Barbie. So like no other girls younger, like the next generation won't have to like imagine a cement ceiling, as she calls it. And I also want to say, I don't think she cares a lot about Barbie the person. We didn't get into that.
No, and her relationship with Ken is
tragic,
complex to say the least. And there's like 2 different moments, kind of bookends, like the beginning and the end of this book. Tragically, Ruth misses the kind of like double passing of her parents and is not able to get closure around that. And she's the 10th in that family. She's from a big family. And then equally tragic in a lot of ways, her son dies, like near the end of this book. Ken dies, and the family perpetuates and spreads a lot of information about the source of his illness when in fact he had contracted HIV and was living a double life. He passes away, and instead of following in Jewish tradition, his daughter gets married like the next day anyway. Mm-hmm. And this is also where we learn the provenance of Stacy, another beloved Barbie,
of course,
figure. Stacy gets married, and Ruth, escorts her down the aisle in lieu of her son, Ken, who has just died. There's these really like profoundly tragic moments.
Yeah.
Also kind of in the vein of Molly. This is a book that is absent, really any kind of meaningful discourse on Holocaust or like what it meant to like survive the 1940s and to thrive as this Jewish power couple. So there's like a lot going on, and I think I like that we read a business history because this is not what like we would ever write about Barbie, but it's really devoid of the cultural impact and cultural context. It's like the ending is like that Ruth wishes she could have lived her whole life on her terms. I think this book is written on her terms. It's like these are the things that Ruth has decided matters.
And basically like Robin accepts whatever limitations Ruth has presented about what she can and can't discuss or handle. Like the Ken stuff was like wild, like truly it was shocking. And the most out of pocket part of this book to me was like, you find out basically there's like ominous comments early in the book where when Ken is introduced as a product, real Ken is like, I have mixed feelings about this. I don't know how I feel about this. And then you get to the end of the book and it's like, he never liked being the basis for Ken because he felt like Ken was a means for people not to deal with their sexuality. And then it was like ... And he hadn't dealt with his, and he ends up developing AIDS. And then Robin awkwardly is like, but Earring Magic Ken in 1993 became a gay icon, like thumbs up. And you're like, what? And then you get this line on the same page. When she's saying like Ken dies, and then the next day Elliot walks Ken's daughter Stacy down the aisle. And she says like in her obituary and in her autobiography, she never revealed that Ken was gay or that he died from AIDS. And she leaves it like really, there were rumors at the time that he had liver cancer, and she just let people go with that. And this is Robin writing about that. If she did not give a full account, she also did not lie. There were family members to protect, after all, but perhaps Ruth understood that, like her, Ken had suffered from a disease that carried fear and shame with it. Like women who lost breast to cancer in 1970, his disease was closeted. Ruth helped change the need for women to hide their mastectomies, but she could do little about the public revulsion towards AIDS sufferers. Pause. Robin's writing this in 2003, right? 10. Oh my God.
9/10.
Okay,
that's
so
the publication date.
We've come, like, she's basically, I think, parroting something that Ruth said, because if you lived in 1970 with breast cancer, you likely did experience discrimination about and feel shame about publicly discussing it. Like, that was a real thing that happened. It is certainly not the same as the revulsion or public shaming people living with HIV/AIDS had in 1990 when Ken was diagnosed. And certainly Robin, writing from the distance of 2010 or the 2000s even, should know the difference and be willing to say, like, it's sad that, as the author weighing in, it's sad that Ruth didn't feel she could tell the truth about Ken's life. Because that is sad. But instead we get like, oh, well, there was nothing she could do. Like, obviously she had people to protect. Like, if you're related to someone with AIDS, like, obviously that's shameful. Like, that's what I got from that. And I'm like, Robin, like, what the hell? But I think that's like the limitations of a business biography is like, she's not, you know, that's not what she's here to talk about.
There's also something to be said for the fact that, like, again, that's like a strange comparison, a strange flattening of what I think really are two very different things. And you are left, like, in that entire chapter really scratching your head. It's not simply that they hid the source of his illness. You learn early on in the book, or you're presented with the fact that, like, Barbie was very critical of her mother and of her parents, but of her mother especially, and, like, hated all the Mattel stuff. But you're told that Ken is creative, and you're given this whole sense that, like, he loves, that he's a Renaissance man and he's making films, and that he respects that his parents are creators. And then kind of out of nowhere, you're presented these two things as if they're, like, you know, of the same course. Like, Ken had a complete second life that no one was supposed to know about, and he was critical of the Ken doll. And you're like, those two things are not the same.
No. They,
like,
yeah, I mean,
he was unfaithful, right? I mean, you're also supposed to believe that he was, like, unfaithful to his wife for years.
Yeah.
And I took from that the wife had a kind of tacit agreement with him, that she understood that he didn't feel that he could live his truth, but also that he lied to the family about, like, his trips, and that he truly had, like, a whole other life.
Right. And Robin, like, weirdly in that section when she's, like, kind of describing, like, the fact that he lied to his wife, he's like, but it was cool. She was like, it was cool because when he told her wife, like, she understood. And she was, like, such a wonderful Italian cook. Like, she just created such a great vibe in the family. Like, they were so close. And it's like, wait a second, what are you talking about? Like, what? Like, what does her ability to cook Italian food have to do with her acceptance of Ken's sexuality?
Right.
My
it would
God.
be sort of like revealing a big fact about yourself and someone saying, you know, I love Peeps at Easter.
Right. Or she's like, but she loved Papagino. Like, she understood Ken and she loved Papagino. And it's like, okay, is that code? Like, it was so, like, it just felt very strange that the whole book had really been focusing on Ruth's professional life. And in the beginning, you get these, like, very brief asides to the fact that both kids exist, and that Barbara didn't vibe with Ruth and didn't like being the basis of Barbie, and didn't like that Ruth was working all the time and it was her life, while they also presented publicly in interviews that they, you know, were so there for their kids. And Ken, you just get as, like, he's the counter. He was down with Ruth. He was eccentric. He and Barbara didn't get along, which is fascinating that Barbara was like, I didn't really care for Ken. Like, years after we now know he's AIDS. Like, you read that early in the book, and at the end I was like, damn, Barbara. But then at the end, Robin makes the decision, like, I'm going to go really personal here about Ken. And it's going to make absolutely no sense. It's going to invite 50 follow-up questions. But I am hard pivoting, which she does immediately after that quote I read about AIDS, to Ruth's redemption narrative being a part of Mattel again at the end of her life. It's like, what? Like, why did we even follow up with the kids if this is what you were going to do?
Yeah, and I think part of what I take away from this book, right, like, I've always seen it as, like, you know, so rich with possibility that Barbie could be anything. I think you can interpret from this book after the fact, Barbie could be anything because, like, Ruth would package it as anything that would sell, right?
Right.
And a polar opposite is Pleasant Rolland, who like very carefully thought
100%.
about like a trio of 3 girls who live in a universe, who like live in years that end with 4, who have birthdays and backstories. Part of why Barbie can be anything is like from its inception, and I looked up photos of very, very early Barbies, she was down for whatever, right? Like as long as she had an adult body and an adult life, it was like, yeah, I can do anything. Which is why Ruth was willing to sell the burp gun. Like, like I think she would have sold like, you know, munitions to Iran if it.
Let me put it to you
like
like
they
this.
Could be made out of plastic.
We're approaching like a binary that none of us asked for of Barbie versus Oppenheimer.
Yeah.
Ruth is an Oppenheimer. She is not a Barbie.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think actually Oppenheimer was like, don't use nuclear weapons. Like, thanks, after he invents them. But it's like, I mean, I don't even think Ruth would do that. She'd be like, well, the check cleared and we didn't make nuclear war. Like, you just asked us for the bombs. Like, that's kind of like what you get from her at the end of this journey. And it sounds like I'm being very unkind to Ruth, but I think I'm actually showing her the respect of talking about her as I would a person of any gender who behaved this way in business. Like, she insisted on her gender not being something that mattered to her until like basically she was convicted, and then she like joins a women in business group. Did you read that part where it's like she went to Mexico and was like in a hot tub with all these women in business, and she was like, that's when it clicked for me, like, wow, like I vibe with women, like I've never had women friends before. And you're like, till you were in your 50s?
Yeah.
Like what? Yeah.
There's a lot. Like, I think if you have like a spare afternoon and you're curious about like how biographies are written, like I think there's a lot to work with here. And honestly, like I can't consume enough cultural texts around Barbie. Like I'm like even more fascinated than I was before. And this also affirms like this is a thing that's like culturally worth investing in, right?
Yes.
Like this is a character that we all find fascinating. And I think the huge response to even like a singular tweet, right, about Barbie being a limiting character, it just shows like there's enduring culture wars, and you couldn't you couldn't start from zero with Barbie today.
No. Right.
But like because she came out in 1959, she was a new kind of plastic, you know, the Barbs are excited, like the Barbies, not Barbara herself, but, you know, like I'll be there.
Like Ruth invented the Barbie girl, but we've lived in the Barbie world.
That's exactly correct. And like no one can really afford a real Barbie dream house, but I'll tell you what, like you want a little rush, like go buy a Barbie. Like if that's like your thing or not your thing,
just
like
try
you don't
it.
need to
Maybe
take that
it could
advice,
be your thing. I also want to recommend Tiny Shoulders, which I watched before this. It's on Hulu right now, and it's a documentary from 2018 that follows Mattel. It's a different version of a Barbie corporate history where they follow like the women of Barbie trying to do a major revision to the Barbie like narrative, where they launched body positive, like different variations of the Barbie body type. And watching them all in a room when like they announced the time cover that revealed this was insane, because they were like, oh my God, it's all about to change. It's all about to change. Like, what if people can't handle it? But knowing that it was a queer woman who like spearheaded this was her passion project, and then this whole team of all mostly women who make this happen, like it is really interesting if you're curious more about like the process of modern day Barbie, like research and development. I would definitely check that out.
Yeah, and be sure to like share your Barbie thoughts with us. Like if you, like me, got your first CD in the form of Aqua's Barbie World, like that was,
oh my God. Wow, what a first CD to get.
Yeah, I had my parents purchase it for me, and I remember this like it was yesterday and did not understand the comment until much later. They were like, I don't think this song is about what you think it's about.
Wow.
And it took me into adulthood to realize that they were correct, because I literally thought it was about like Barbies and like playing, and it's not.
Well, in a way it is. In a way it is, but it's, I mean, you know.
In the way that Ruth is Barbie and Barbie is Ruth, and like
it's a different kind
nothing
of play.
Really has meaning. But yeah, you know, be sure to like give us your Barbie feedback. We're like gonna play with a different kind of toy for
scared
the
about
month,
this.
Or a lot of the month.
Y'all
of
did
August,
this to us. Y'all did this to us.
for a long time, we've had the request out there, like, tell us what you want us to cover. And someone said they just wanted us to play with Neopets or Tamagotchi for a period of time. And we heard you, and we're going to do a virtual digital pet episode. Like, I've ordered my Tamagotchi. Mm-hmm. She's in a mermaid casing. I don't know what that means, but like, wow. I will keep you updated.
And I bought Anna one like 2 years ago for nostalgia purposes. I need to say I'm coming into this like an air gap computer. I never had a Tamagotchi. Allison had to sit me down and tell me what net pets were right before we started this. Still learning. I have to do some more Googling. But, we'll be keeping journals. We're going to see how we do as caretakers. We're going to talk about the whole phenomena. So I'm both scared. I guess I'm excited, Jesse Spano style. Like, I'm a little bit scared as a caretaker. I don't know where this is going to take me.
What if my Barbie takes my Tamagotchi and, like, liberates it from my care?
I think that would be beautiful in a sense. I mean, we'll see.
Maybe the Tamagotchi will end up in my Barbie pool. I'll let you all know.
Life in plastic is fantastic. Like, is it fantastic for my Tamagotchi? I don't know.
I honestly couldn't tell you. I'm very excited. I hope that you like follow along with us on this and like stay tuned for information on watch-alongs and like other gatherings. We love to hear from you. So like if you found your way here, like you know how to do that. But if you do have questions, you can always reach out to us.
I also want to say that preparing for this episode has affirmed our decision not to contact Mattel when we wrote our book, because I feel like corporate access means you can't write anything real.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave it there. So if you're coming to our book expecting us to interview people at Mattel, it's not in there.
Former employees, yes.
But like, I don't want to go to like their PR person now and be like, can you tell me about American Girl? They'd be like, oh my God, hey girl boss, like here's like press release. Anyway, I'm very excited about this next episode. I didn't expect this, but I love when, we asked, you answered. I'm scared. I'm excited. You know how to get in touch with us.
Democracy.
Oh my God, it is democracy. So Allison.
This Tamagotchi, it's like our Joe Biden. Like it's what we got.
We did it, Joe.
We asked.
Speaking of hair politics, we just were talking about Melody. Like if you have not seen Keke Palmer's interview with Kamala, like please check it out. Keke Palmer just makes me laugh. Oh my God. But a lot of good things to look forward to.
For sure.
So thanks everyone for listening. We so appreciate this whole community. I love being on Discord. Please join us there if you haven't. We have instructions on the website, and be in touch with us if you have any other suggestions, comments, feedback, suggestions on how to care for a Tamagotchi. Like Allison, where can people reach you if they want to give you some, virtual pet care tips?
I'm at Allison Horrocks on Twitter and Instagram. Very easy to find. You can also reach out to the show, Dolls Lives Podcast or Dolls Lives Pod on Twitter for as long as that exists. Mary, Where should people find you on Instagram?
Just find me on Instagram at Mimi Mahoney. I've never owned a Tamagotchi. I barely know what is going to happen with that. I still don't understand that pets. Been on the website. I don't know. Just like pray for me. That's all I can say at this time. Thank you, everyone. We so appreciate you. We love this community, and we will see you on the next episode.